Why draw? By drawing we learn to see, to feel, to touch, to experience, to know, to construct. If you want to get anywhere in the art world that matters, you must draw and draw and draw, because drawing is the bones of your picture, and in drawing you learn to see form, design, rhythm and structure. You learn to see, not merely look at. Unless you can first see and then draw your thought, where is your picture?
Sybil Andrews dedicated her life to art. To her, art was work. Through hard work and study, Sybil believed artists could deepen their knowledge and understanding of the spirituality in art, a quality she considered to be the essence of any work of value. Sybil's career, which began in England in the 1920s, spans 70 years. She is best known for her Colourlinocut prints. In these linocuts, Sybil combined vibrant color, decorative patterning, and simplified forms with the speed and motion of Futurism and the superimposed planes of Cubism. Her early work represents the dynamism of the modern age. Sybil was among a group of artists who studied linoleum cuts at the Grosvenor School of Modern Art in London, England in the 1920s. Her instructor, Claude Flight, believed linocuts could express modern ideas and values.
And directly I could see, without even hearing what he was talking about, I could see what he was doing. He was just up my street, you see. So for me, I was watching all the while. There he was after action and things happening. He wasn't after little pretty pictures all the time. He was after something happening in his pictures. So it was quite exciting. Just taking his cup of tea and once a week. So that started off the linos. And you see, in the days gone by, the Victorian times, you've got the same all the time. You've got the remains of the Victorians, pretty pictures, pretty bunches of flowers, pretty flowers. But the Victorians didn't tackle the man who's with a sledgehammer doing something in the road, doing the hard work of this world. So when people came along and started drawing things with a great big smack into them, it was something different. It gave us a chance.
Linocuts also had practical merits. Floor linoleum was cheap, scraps of it could be bought for very little money. Simple tools such as a pocket knife and an umbrella rib were used to cut the linoleum. And because Flight students pulled their own prints, the need for a printer was eliminated. Frans Chizik, a Viennese art educator, was also teaching the linocut to his students. An exhibition of his students' work in London and his book inspired both Flight and Sybil.
To see his work was always exciting because he again wasn't being fussy about putting in every last detail. He wanted to see if they got any ideas in their head and put them down as ideas. And by jingo, he was just up my street, all his big strong lines showing what's happening. And he made quite a noise in Europe with his classes, you see. And so fortunately, Flight had become interested, had seen him and had met him and all that. And so Flight was carrying on the same ideas, action and movement and what's happening. So we were all right, for me, full speed ahead. Something was always happening, and when it was happening, there was no mistake about it, it's happening. Down it went, either in straight lines or in curved lines or whatever it happened to be. Simplify it back to its action lines, and then decide how you're going to treat it. Are you going to treat it with a lot of little thin lines or solid lines or wide lines according to the subject, according to what you're trying to say? So most people's work shows the individual person. One teaches it, may treat it in a very fussy manner. Little man, another person may treat it very simply, do you see? So that became very personal.
Sybil's training in the basics of art, drawing, form, color, pattern and design prepared her to work with linocuts. It was an education that began early in Sybil's life. As a child growing up in Bury St. Edmunds, northeast of London, Sybil experimented with the possibilities of colour.
At home in England, we children all had paint boxes from our cradles, not with the idea we were going to be wonderful artists, but to keep us quiet and amused on bad days. I loved my paint box and well remember the birthday which bought me my first proper paint box with little china pans of colour. I remember the smell of it now. It was my best loved possession. If they don't play with it when they're children, it's an awful job to make them see colours when they're grown up.
During World War I, Sybil was among the many women who entered the workforce. She worked at the Standard Motor Company, manufacturing airplane parts, and at the Bristol Welding Company as an oxyacetylene torch welder. In the early morning hours before her shifts at work, Sybil studied art by correspondence. She found the life-drawing exercises were an invaluable foundation of knowledge. In 1922, Sybil moved to London and continued her art education at Heatherley's School of Fine Art. She studied under Henry Massey, who taught her life-drawing and oil painting. He challenged his students' abilities with all-or-nothing sketching exercises. With only a few minutes to draw their subject, Massey's students were forced to look at the essential elements of what they were trying to draw.
He was a wonderful, wonderful man. So practical. You weren't just doing pretty pictures all the time, you were really learning to draw. But 5 minutes was good practice. You had to get the essentials because you didn't have time to be fussy. You had to learn what was essential, what wasn't, you see. So 5-minute sketches, 10-minute sketches, 20-minute sketches. But the quicker they were, the more you had to watch your step. While I was at Heatherley's, W. Kermode had given an art lecture and demonstration on woodblock printing. This was in black and white, so I had already been thinking and working in terms of blocks when I met Flight, and I immediately saw that his method was what I wanted for my ideas.
Cyril Power, an architect and artist, also played an important role in Sybil's career. Throughout the 1920s and 30s, they worked closely together, sharing ideas and collaborating on projects like a series of posters for the London Passenger Transport Board. But what Sybil valued most was that Power taught her to draw buildings.
So he happened to be working then as he was an architect, and he saw me struggling to make houses look as though they were houses. So he set to work on me to put me down in front of difficult, awkward pieces and taught me to draw. That came in useful, you see, when I wanted to earn my living with the tri-points and buildings and things like that. So I had a good training in that way. Set me in front of the horrible thing I was told to draw and draw it. And then the horrible mistakes you made. You learn by your nasty mistakes.
Initially, in the 1920s, Sybil earned her bread and cheese by selling her dry points of popular buildings to Londoners and tourists. She began to make Colourlinocuts seriously in 1929. Many of them were included in linocut exhibits that were held in London and abroad. These first Colourlinocut exhibits were important because they exposed audiences to the vitality and dynamism of Colourlinocuts.
They had never seen a group of colour prints like those before. They knew etchings and dry points, black and white, they knew those. But they didn't know linocuts. Of course, you see, Flight thought they were going to be such a tremendous results because they were, but they weren't the tremendous results. Not many people buying. To begin with, it was very hard. Well, you never saw any sales, anything like today. For instance, we'll take, I don't remember the exact prices, but I suppose I might have got £3 for one like that, big horses, or somewhere about £3 or £4. Not very much.
By choosing subjects from the everyday world around her, Sybil was able to bring a new vision to subjects that might otherwise be overlooked or considered commonplace. The speed and movement of men on motorbikes, the patterns found in a crowded concert hall, the simplicity of country life in Bury St. Edmunds, and the construction of an underground railway station in London.
And there they were. They had a whole big team working on that, as far as you could see the team of these men. And it was fun, you see, they were heave a hope, to get all this lot working at once, where today I suppose they'd have a huge machine would do the whole thing. So that you see, the world was full of exciting patterns. The scythe was used such a great deal in those days. It still is, because there's certain jobs the scythe will do that nothing else will do. It'll get into corners and round, and so that you see the scythe all the time. It's a wonderful tool. The curve of the blade, and the curve here, all the way, and the curves that therefore they're using it on the curves. And when you see a team working as a team, very exciting. It's like a ballet. You see 3 men or 4 or 5 men behind, keeping the same movement. Must keep the same movement or they'd cut one another's feet off, you see. I mean, literally, when you get a tool like the blade that high, that wide. This, of course, of football, explains itself.
In 1938, Sybil moved to Norley Wood in the New Forest in southern England. Amidst the turmoil of World War II, the tranquility of the New Forest was a welcome retreat. Sybil made few linocuts. Instead, she turned to oil paintings and watercolors to convey her fascination with nature and love for the forest.
I went into the forest because they were getting such awful every newspaper about what was going to come with Hitler and all that, and I thought, well, it's about time I got out of London. That's why I found a place in the country, you see. There wasn't anybody about, because, you see, it was wartime. Everybody was working, and then no one was having just holidays, except for the main line, road traffic. I never saw anybody, anything. I was entirely alone. It was the most wonderful thing to have just a deer and the birds and things, squirrels and things like that.
War work brought Sybil out of the forest 4 years later. She went to work as a boat builder for the British Powerboat Company near Southampton. It was there that she met Walter Morgan, a fellow worker whom she married in 1943. After the war, Sybil and Walter were looking for a fresh start. Walter had read about the abundant fishing and the beautiful forests in British Columbia, Canada. In 1947, they made their decision. They left England and sailed for Vancouver Island, eventually settling in Campbell River. Sybil described Campbell River as a primitive little place when they first arrived, but in truth, Walter and Sybil weren't looking for anything more. They wanted to be surrounded by the forest, with the wild world at their door.
This wilderness of black-green trees, black-grey sea, turbulent tides, rotting timber, scrub and uncouth men, toil and rain. Black-grey rocks where the eagle watches, black, green, blue and grey, granite rocks, octopus haunted, black carrion birds on the black-grey shore, long ropes of olive, black-green kelp, the stench of tide-piled rotting weed, and a sick, wet smell of water and wet things. and rain, helpless, relentless rain. The ravens croak and the seamew calling. It was an exciting place, very wild sort of place. Just made all these patterns. There were logs all over the place. So that's really the pattern of what was lying about on the shore there. And as I like to see the pattern of things, it was an exciting place. Trees with their leaves on, and trees with their leaves off. How a tree stands up, how it hangs on. You look at the way its feet are hanging on, tying on, digging their claws in the ground. Wonderful to draw, all those marvellous old trees. To see them and see how they held on, how the weight of those trees held on over the centuries. Wonderful. So it's always been art, and always has been the countryside or the forest.
Sybil's art reveals a passion for the locale. In addition to her extensive work outside, the activities of the people who lived and worked in the Campbell River area also caught her attention.
It used to amuse me first of all. To me, they were comic caps. They were the round ones and long ones and peaked ones, and I thought they were very amusing. And then we'd get the whole lot of them together there with their coloured clothes and everything. And so here they are. They are fun. And as somebody said afterwards, it was a picture of Canada. So it is. I don't know where else you see these. I don't think even today they're using so many plaids as they used to. Great big staring plaids, they were fun. And so I saw them and I thought they made a good picture. But that was that. When it came to Dance of the Birds, they were kind of amusing. They were all wearing masks like different birds and different cloaks for the different purposes. But they made a very exciting shape. We see lots of logs here, but don't often see them that size. Of course, not many of those size logs are left up here now. They've all gone long ago. But to see that great big stuff coming up that big hill here, swaying about, it looks so horribly insecure. So I'm always watching for the things where there's something happening, you see. Something exciting happening. Something that's got good angles, good lines, good curves. It's not an easy thing, you see. So many youngsters or beginners think you just sit down and the thing happens. But they don't see anything, they don't see angles, lines, curves, anything.
In 1960, Sybil began to teach art classes in her home. Her teaching style was based on her belief that all students can learn from their mistakes. Sybil encouraged her students to work outside. She believed that by working outdoors, an artist would begin to see, begin to understand color and light, and begin to develop a sense of composition. Sybil used the linocut as one of her primary teaching methods.
The linocut medium is a wonderful medium, and a wonderful medium for students, even though they may not go on with it. I know of nothing comparable for discipline, training, or for teaching design. In the case of teaching, you're developing the person as much as anything, because it's what that one person is thinking. What they do, so many of them think nothing. So when they come into the class, they've got nothing. So how do you see and how do you learn to see? Try and draw the thing. The only way I can say is to go out with a paint box or chalk, or not pencil, it's too skinny. Big thick old chalk like we use here, and draw and draw and draw. And if they've got anything in them, it'll begin to emerge. So I say just go ahead with a brush and plenty of colour and bang the thing down as hard as you can go, never mind what it looks like, just to begin to get the courage to put it down. And then presently the work ceases to look sort of frightened and timid, and it looks as though it means something. So it becomes work. And if that's a thing so few people understand, they think just making a nice picture will be lovely. Just join an art class, lovely. Buy lots of equipment, lots of palettes and lots of all sorts of things. They come staggering in here, some of them carry the amount of stuff. If you'd had to go out and carry all that lot, makes you laugh.
In recent years, new appreciation has developed for Sybil's work. But she was never interested in fame and didn't pursue success. Nor did she simply decide to make her living at art, because, she said, there may be no living. It all grew just as a plant or a tree grows, leaf by leaf, branch by branch. And a tree takes a lifetime in its growing.